Thank you. Go back to the first. Thank you, John. Good evening. My name is Tracy Craig, and I'll be moderating tonight's meeting now that I've unmuted myself. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for attending. This is Alameda County Environmental Health Department, along with the city, and is meeting to provide you with an update on the former ABNI facility at 7825 San Leandro Street in Oakland. We had a meeting, I think, about 6 weeks ago, and this is an update following that meeting. Okay, we do have Spanish interpretation tonight, so I'm going to let John Permani, who's here with me, hand this over to the Spanish interpreters, and then we'll get going. John?
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everyone. If you'd like to listen to the meeting in our Spanish interpretation, you can click on the interpretation icon, which looks like a globe at the bottom of your screen. You may have to click the More button, which will look like 3 dots if you don't see it. And then you can choose to listen to the language that you would like to hear, in this case, Spanish. If preferred, you can also choose to mute the original audio by clicking on that. And now I'll turn it over to our Spanish interpreter to relay these instructions in Spanish.
Buenas tardes. Si ustedes desean escuchar la interpretación en idioma español, tienen que hacer clic en el icono del globo que está en la parte inferior de la pantalla. Ahí encontrarán la palabra interpretación y elegirán el idioma en el que quieren escuchar, o sea, español, y pueden decidir también mutear el idioma original. Gracias.
Great, thank you. Okay, this is our agenda tonight. As I said, we're going to provide an update on 7825 San Leandro property, what's going on there with the tow yard operations and environmental cleanup. Also here, most importantly, to answer questions and get input from the community. The agenda is to the left, and I don't think I need to read it to anybody. Our presentation, just about 20-30 minutes long, and we'll save the rest of the time, which will be about an hour, for questions and answers. To the right, you'll see meeting attendees. These are the people that will be speaking tonight. So we have Dylan Rowe, who I think everybody knows she's the Chief of Land and Water for the Alameda County Environmental Health, registered engineer in California. With the City of Oakland, we have Cecilia. She also goes by Ceci Muella, and she's an acting building official. We have Terry Flashing, who will be talking about stormwater management. From Auto Plus Towing, we have Maria Morales, and finally from Prologis, we have Blair Rushing. And then I'm Tracy Craig, moderating tonight's meeting. With me is John Permani, and he's managing all the logistics. So a couple things before we get going. I know that Dylan Rowe, we had to reschedule this meeting, and I want to thank everybody for attending. Dylan very quickly wanted to explain why that had to happen, and that will be followed by Councilmember Houston. He wanted to also say a few things. So Dylan?
Thanks, Tracy.
Sure.
Good evening, everybody. I do want to apologize. We had the meeting scheduled. My brother had a massive heart attack, my younger brother, on May 4th, and I jumped on a plane and was with him in ICU for 10 days before he died on May 14th. So this meeting is really important to me. This project is really important to me. Environmental Health has committed to, being an advocate for environmental justice communities. And I want you to just know that I did not cancel this meeting lightly. And I appreciate everybody's patience in that. And I'm glad we have it looks like a pretty good turnout tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Dylan. And then Councilmember Houston, you are up.
Thank you. Thank you. This is Ken Houston, son of Oakland Council member. I'm here to hear both sides. We have to have community input.
Wait, your
District
audio
7
isn't so great, Councilmember Houston. So maybe closer to your phone, or let's try again.
Can you hear me?
That's good. Yes.
Okay, we start all over. Ken Houston, son of Oakland Council member, District 7. I'm here to hear. Our District 7 has been left out for so many years, right? I don't want to hear the community I want to hear the environmental justice side. So I'm here to listen, and then we'll make a decision on what moves we have to make. So I'm here to listen. All right, how you doing? I know. So thank you so much. I'm out on the ground, so I'm up and moving. Let's go.
Okay, thank you so much. So we have a comment and it says you need to read the agenda unless the interpreter is reading it. Thank you so much, Gabrielle, for reminding me. So I am going to read the agenda. We're going to briefly talk about Auto Plus Towing's plans for relocation. We're going to talk about a compliance plan that Prologis and the city will be writing in coordination with Prologis. We're going to talk about ways that the site needs to be stabilized. So that means that it will be to stabilize it for operations. We're going to talk about how environmental issues will be addressed. And then we're going to talk next steps and schedule, and we'll save the majority of the time for questions and answers. Also, I read the meeting attendees. You can read them right there as well. Okay, next slide. Okay, a lot of regulatory agencies are involved in this project. I am not going to read this slide, but we will have this presentation translated into Spanish and uploaded to GeoTracker. We do have Alameda County Environmental Health. There's 2 divisions that are represented tonight. The Local Oversight Program, which Dylan Rowe is involved in, and then the Certified Unified Program Agency, also known as CUPA. They work hand in glove with one another on facilities like this. The California Environmental Protection Agency is also involved. They are the water board actually enforces compliance with for stormwater permits, and DTSC is advising on how to handle contamination. The Bay Area Air Quality Management District oversees air quality and responds to complaints during construction for dust or smells. And then, of course, the City of Oakland has a role with Auto Plus Towing and the relocation of their operations, permitting demolition on the site, and finance stormwater as well. And then finally, when the site gets entitled, the entitlement process, which means getting it redeveloped, what would be out there, and overseeing construction of any project that is entitled. Since we last met, the City of Oakland has issued a notice of violation to Prologis, and that was asking that all tow yard operations cease as of June 10th. As I said before, the City of Oakland will be writing a compliance plan at the request of Prologis to extend that deadline because getting Auto Plus Tow off of the site in an orderly and thoughtful fashion is going to take longer than June 10th. So they have a compliance plan that includes an extension so that it can be a thoughtful stopping of operations and relocation. Alameda County Environmental Health has approved work plans for the sampling of that industrial water supply well and some liquids that was in pits. Prologis also submitted some plans for hardscape restoration. If you remember, some of the pavement was degraded. Auto Plus Towing is looking at other sites to relocate operations to, and we'll be discussing that in more detail. And then we've also held a couple of interagency meetings. We probably would have held more, but Dylan was out for a good couple of weeks there. And now I am going to turn this over, John, next slide, to the City of Oakland. And just if you have any questions, you can raise your hand virtually, you can raise your hand physically, or you can use the question and answer box. And we have no problem stopping the presentation to answer any clarifying questions. I would say if it's not a clarifying question, hold it to the end because a lot of your questions may get answered in the presentation itself. Okay, thank you.
I just add real quick, there's a person joining on the phone and you can press *9 to raise your hand and then *6 to unmute yourself.
If you have a question. Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Cecilia Muela, or Ceci Muela, and I'm the acting building official for the City of Oakland, currently overseeing as well the Code Enforcement Division of our Bureau. So as Tracy mentioned, the City of Oakland did issue a notice of violation to the site located at 7825 San Leandro for Auto Plus Towing. And within that notice, there were some notice of violations that were also a part of this notice of violation with deadline of compliance. So some of those items were the tow yard that's operating currently on site without a conditional use permit, lack or inadequate measures or no measures to prevent contaminated stormwater from discharging to the street or creeks, and leakage fluids of leaks of fluids and hazardous materials onto grade that come from as a result of the vehicles are being stored on site, and improper erosion control measures, as well as accumulation of debris throughout the lot. The corrective action that we've asked as part of our notice of violation is to cease the tow yard operations and remove all vehicles from site. Also to include implementation of stormwater best management practices and to take every action possible to prevent mosquito larvae from growing in standing water. The city has taken a stance of working with Prologis to be able to address these violations. We understand it's a huge undertaking, and so we are working with them in the development of a compliance plan with a date of June 10th for execution of that compliance plan.
Tracy, you're muted again.
Sorry about that. I keep thinking I'm unmuting. Maria, I'm going to hand this over to Maria Morales. Maria is the manager of Auto Plus Towing. She's going to talk about current operations and then what they're doing to relocate the operations at 7825 San Leandro to 2 other facilities.
So
And go ahead, Maria.
currently, one second, I have an echo on my end. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm going to have you mute. And really quickly, we just have a question that I'd like to have
Okay.
Ceci answer. And that is, how many extensions will Prologis be allowed, and what's the maximum amount of time they will have?
That's a great question, and we'll get a little bit more in depth as we go through the presentation tonight. But just as a quick answer, the extension is depending on the work. So we don't foresee this project itself being extended too long. We have very set milestones that are going to be a part of the compliance plan. The compliance plan, depending on what is happening on site, can be anywhere from 3 to 6 months to a year. Obviously, because of the conditions on site, we want this to work rather expeditiously. So we are going to be working with Auto Plus Towing to, again, first get the vehicles off the lot and then begin all of the remediation work that needs to happen as far as implementation of, addressing all the hazards that are on the site itself. So I guess long story or long short answer, I should say, would be that we're not looking at extending the work too long. We want to make sure that we work closely with Prologis to move this forward as quickly as possible.
Right. I would also say that we do have some dates that are tentative, but we will be showing them later. And the hope is to get everything off the site by the end of August, early September right now. But we want to make sure that it's an organized exit and mistakes aren't made again. Right. And then I am going to hand this over to Maria Morales, so the manager of Auto Plus Towing. Maria, there's a couple questions I'm hoping that you can answer in your presentation. One is, when exactly will the cars be removed from the site? I think they are being removed right now.
Yes.
And are those other 2 facilities permitted and operating legally? So just think about those answers while you're giving your portion of the presentation,
Okay.
please.
So we are currently accepting only vehicles that are intact on that property. We are also removing vehicles and taking them to the other Auto Plus facilities that are listed here, which have been, we've been inspected and we have the permitting for those. You can see the warehousing and the covering, so it's definitely suitable. And we have cars in a fenced area separate from the public access, waiting for dismantlers to pick them up because they are cleared to be sold. And as you can see, this is the lot in its current state. The tow truck here is showing us moving vehicles in disrepair to our other locations. And we show here the vehicles on the lot, majority are intact. And our two other facilities is 5401 San Leandro Street and 733 Cabin Court. Warehousing covering intact vehicles are stored on the pavement outside. Burned or vehicles in disrepair are stored inside of the warehousing.
Okay, and Maria, I think that just for people's knowledge, I believe that both Alameda County and the city have been to both of those facilities and looked at
That
them
is correct.
as well to get those in compliance, correct?
That is accurate.
Right. Okay, great. All right. So going to quickly talk about APT facilities site inspection, and I think this will be Terry with the City of Oakland. And Terry, if you could just introduce yourself and your role, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm Terry Fashing. I manage the Watershed and Stormwater Division, City of Oakland Public Works. We help the city comply with something known as a municipal regional stormwater permit issued by the Regional Water Quality Control Board. And one of the things that we do because of that permit is we inspect businesses that have a potential to discharge pollutants to stormwater, and we require best management practices at those businesses. And so because AutoPlus is on this site, even though it is temporary, we are asking them to be sure to implement best management practices right now. And so they have been working on doing that and are doing that. Our group has shared fact sheets with them listing the best management practices for them to consider. And the goal is to make it so that no pollution is leaving the site in water or stormwater, and no pollution can discharge either to the ground, which in this case we don't want any pollutants discharging into the ground. And so also, and that information was provided on May 21st and 22nd, but I think even prior to that, the city was working with AutoPlus to get everything into good shape on the site. And then tomorrow, in collaboration with Alameda County Environmental Health, the City of Oakland's business stormwater inspection staff will be inspecting all 3 AutoPlus towing yards to just identify if any best management practices additionally need to be implemented. And we'll also just be looking generally over the entire site at 7825 San Leandro Street to ensure that stormwater pollution prevention best management practices are in place.
And Terry, before we move on, we do have one question that's clarifying question, and it says, how were they issued a stormwater permit when they are operating illegally?
They were not issued a stormwater permit. What I said is that the City of Oakland must comply with our own municipal regional stormwater permit, which requires us to regulate businesses. And as this is a business that is now operating on this site, this came to our attention, and we are therefore inspecting the business. So we are permitted by the Regional Water Quality Control Board. And even though, AutoPlus will be moving off the site, we're, helping to make sure and that, and basically supporting AutoPlus to make sure that they understand what best management practices are needed for them to protect stormwater.
Okay. We do have another question in the question and answer box, and I just want to acknowledge, Gabrielle, I'm going to hold that question because I'd actually like Joe DeVry with the city to answer that. It's about, have there been any really lessons learned from this with the city? And I think there have, and one of them is that we're all need to work together to address issues like this, but I'm going to have that answered in the question and answer and keep moving. Okay, just wanted to acknowledge I do see that, and it's an important question. All right, John. Okay, and I think we're back to Ceci.
Thank you, Tracy. So a little bit more on the compliance plan, just to give a little brief background on what a compliance plan is. A compliance plan is a contractual agreement that the City of Oakland takes on with a property owner when there are conditions on a property that have violations or are violations of a certain extent that we see either have not been abated, but there is no compliance or little compliance, or they may take a little longer than our compliance timeframes. The compliance plan has milestones that allow us to set timeframes for each milestone to be abated or addressed. In this case, because we do want the vehicles to be removed off property and we want certain measures to take place to be able to remove all hazards, we are going to have set dates set to those milestones. So as you see here, we're going to continue stormwater best management practice improvements and implementation. That has a date, as you see here, of May 30th. And I do want to make very clear that these dates that you're seeing right now are tentative dates. So we will have an inspection along with the watershed department tomorrow on site, and one of my inspectors that will then allow us to look at the site a bit closer to determine if these dates are going to be dates that we can work with, or if we need to extend a little bit more, not too much. And what I mean by that might be like a few days in between, or if we need to button up those dates a little bit more. In addition to that, the compliance plan, like I said, we're looking to execute by June 10th, meaning we're looking to enter into a contractual agreement by June 10th that will then lead to these milestones to start taking effect. Our city staff will be keeping up and conducting monthly inspections of the site to ensure that these milestones are being met, as well as we're going to be evaluating any other issues that may arise, or being able to troubleshoot if these compliance dates need, something else added as far as compliant measures or joint enforcement, in addition to what we see on the compliance plan with the watershed department.
Okay.
If there is failure of the compliance plan, I just kind of want to touch on this because it's very important. If the compliance plan isn't met, at that point, the city then takes an escalated enforcement action. But it is our goal that with the compliance plan, we will be able to work with Prologis to effectively move the needle, if you will, to bring the property into compliance.
Okay, and then Ceci, a clarifying question. Can you provide details for how the public can get involved in the compliance plan and where this compliance plan can be found? Are there public meetings or any materials available to the public related to this compliance plan?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So typically anytime, and this is anywhere in the state of California, when we have an open and active case, the information and or the details of that specific case that is currently open and active remain with the case, the property owner, and the city. So we don't necessarily have the compliance plans or the notices of violation as a public-facing document. However, if there is interest in getting a copy of that compliance plan, we do have a public records request that the public can go ahead and request, or a PRA that they can submit. We can provide documents that way. The compliance plan involves just the property owners and the city itself. Again, it's a contractual agreement where, we work together to ensure that the violations are abated.
Okay, and then just a couple more. Will inspection materials be reported out and shared publicly?
So we do have our website where you can check on the status of a case, and there may be details in there based on results that we enter through the milestone process. So on a monthly basis, you can go in there and see what actions have been taken as far as moving forward with compliance of the site.
Okay, and then I just have two more questions and then I'm going to move us on. One is very simple, but the first one, how will the compliance plan support the July 31st plan for Auto Plus Towing to end their operations on the site as stated in the April 25th Stormwater Work Plan? Is that a
So
question that you can answer, Ceci?
Uh, uh, I can answer a portion of it. I think Maria can answer some of it, and then Prologis can answer some of it. It's like
Okay.
a three-part answer, right?
Okay.
On the side of the city, we're working very closely with, obviously, Auto Plus Towing and Prologis to make sure that that happens, okay? As we heard a little earlier, Maria and Prologis are taking measures to try to find locations for these vehicles to be moved to. So we do understand that they're already doing their due diligence in trying to meet those deadlines. So again, with the compliance plan, we're going to work very closely and try to be as efficient as possible to make sure that we meet the dates that have already been presented before the community.
Okay, then I'm going to have Prologis address the rest of that when they're actually on the next slide when they're talking about dates. There's just one more question for you, and that is how should we send the PRA or Public Records Act request is really what it is. Who did they send that to get the copy of that compliance plan?
It's a great question. So if you go onto our website under the Planning and Building Bureau, you'll see a few links there. You'll have a link there to request or submit for a PRA. Once you go ahead and click on that link, it'll ask you a few questions. You can go ahead and specify what it is that you're trying to get a copy of as far as the form of the document.
Okay,
Property
and then
address.
there's just a question, will it be uploaded to GeoTracker? The city does not plan to upload it to GeoTracker, so the way to get that is to
Exactly.
submit a Public Records Act request.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to move us forward, and I think Prologis is actually going to provide more information on the compliance plan and also the tentative dates that were asked about. And then Blair, if you can address this question during your presentation, that would be great. How will the compliance plan support the July 31st plan for Auto Plus Towing to end their operations on the site as stated in the April 25th Stormwater Work Plan? If you don't remember that, I'll prompt you again.
Thanks, Tracy, and thanks, Ceci. So to start with the question, the July 31st APT operational shutdown. So that is tied to the stormwater work plan that you're referencing. That's why we've tied those dates together so that they are aligned, right? So we've got the stormwater management plan is looking ahead to the site being vacated and tying to the compliance plan date of beginning the operational shutdown as well. I think that was the question to tie those two together.
Good.
And so Prologis's part in the compliance plan formulation is to provide milestones to work with AutoPlus as well as the city to get into compliance. So we prepared milestone dates to get us there. And as has previously been discussed, we're working towards an August 30th date to cease operations and vacate the property. In between there are some other dates, including pit clean out and stormwater BMP implementation, assessment of pit integrity, some other items we've been discussing as well. Post APT ceasing operations and vacating the property, there will be a period of time for general site cleanup after they have moved out, as well as completing hardscape rehabilitation and pavement work, including the stormwater modifications, which ties into that April plan that was asked in the question earlier.
Next slide, John. Okay, and I think I'm going to hand this over to Dylan Rowe now. Dylan, there are a couple questions here that I want you to address while you're doing that. One, does the city of Oakland and or Alameda County have the technical wherewithal to determine the extent of water pollution that occurred over the past rainy season? So maybe you can discuss that with stormwater.
I can.
Okay, and
So
then
Yeah, so there's been a lot of discussion about stormwater. I want to make it clear that the Regional Water Board and City of Oakland are the main people that are responsible for stormwater compliance. Environmental health is reviewing things related to contamination and site cleanup. So there's a lot of technical expertise in there. Each of City of Oakland has a consultant, Geosyntec, who is an expert in stormwater, and the Regional Water Board, that's what they do. And environmental health has a lot of expertise also. But again, I'm going to kind of put that the emphasis on stormwater is both the City of Oakland and the Regional Water Board. So yes, and there will be additional assessment. We've had multiple meetings. We're going to be receiving, and it's going to come up but I'm going to talk about it now. On Friday, which is today's Wednesday, right? So on Friday, Prologis will be submitting results, 2 documents that will go up on GeoTracker, which have the results of the liquid pit sampling and of the groundwater in the industrial supply well. And that's going to give us a big indication of what we expect to see in stormwater that may have gone off site, because the liquid in the pits is stormwater, and the majority of it is stormwater. So I would encourage you to go on GeoTracker, look at that. I'm going to be out of town for 2 weeks. So I won't review it until I get back, but those are very important documents that are going to guide some of this discussion and some of the sampling and the stormwater modifications going forward. Once those documents have been reviewed, plus you have heard, I think Terry talk about tomorrow, City of Oakland and myself are going to be going to all 3 of these yards, this specific one, to again look at stormwater controls. And so as we kind of put all the pieces together and understand what the contaminants are that are in stormwater, and I know I talked about this last time in our meeting, we have asked basically stormwater and groundwater to be sampled for every contaminant of concern due to the storage and uncontrolled migration of burned out contaminants associated with burned out vehicles, leaking, dripping cars. So we'll get more information as we go down that path, and then there will be a plan that will be submitted to us for where they will be sampling within the creek and other locations that will be reviewed by, again, the 3 agencies. If there are PCBs in the groundwater in any of these things, then the US EPA will also get involved at that point. So there is definitely the expertise. Is there another question, Tracy? You're muted.
This is the night of muting myself. There's another one on hardscape, but I know you have a slide discussing hardscape, so when we get to that, I'll ask it.
Okay, so right now there has been a plan. It is on GeoTracker for stormwater drainage modification. It gives documents the kind of the known components of the stormwater system at this point. So last meeting we talked about when ABNI Foundry was there, there was an extensive stormwater system with treatment systems, sumps, treatment tanks that treated stormwater before it was discharged anywhere. And those tanks were demoed during the demolition of the ABNI facility, and the sumps are just open pits. And then they found a whole bunch of pits also, I think 16 or 17 pits when they removed the buildings. And so Prologis and their consultants have documented what they know of where storm drain lines are, where they discharge. But again, and they have a very conceptual idea plan for how they will modify it. Again, this plan will be looked at in great detail after the inspections, after the results of the sampling come in, And ultimately, there will be plans and specifications that will be submitted, not a conceptual design, that will address treating stormwater in this interim state once Auto Plus towing is gone, so that until the site is redeveloped, that stormwater will be controlled. Let's see. So next slide is the hardscape. Until Auto Plus towing is off the site, there has been assessment. So Prologis and their consultants have done an assessment, some assessment, not all assessment, of the hardscape. And they are working with Auto Plus towing to move cars off of heavily degraded areas of hardscape. And this is due to, again, needing impervious surfaces when you've got leaking fluids coming out of cars. And Maria talked about moving, cars in the worst shape off of the site. So there's an interim hardscape interim mitigation measures, which is trying to get them off of the cars, off of the degraded areas. And then once Auto Plus towing is gone from the site, there will be a hardscape restoration plans and specifications again to cap the site appropriately until site redevelopment occurs. So that's part of their current deed restriction, is to maintain a cap at the site. That deed restriction and site management plan will be updated once Auto Plus towing is gone, so that this doesn't happen again. In case Prologis leases this out, that they remain in compliance with their deed restriction and their environmental engineering controls. So again, there is a hardscape restoration plan on GeoTracker. It is conceptual. I think it's 2 pages. It is not sufficient, and it will be followed up with plans and specifications that likely, I don't know, but I think likely will require City of Oakland permits, right, for whatever it is to do. That's all to be sorted out and will be reviewed by multiple agencies.
So Dylan, I think
yeah,
you answered the question, but it was, has the hardscape competency not already been addressed? I was under the impression that this had already been assessed by the county. So what I heard was it was partially addressed, but there were cars other places, so you couldn't address it in its entirety. So once all the cars are off, you'll be assessing the hardscape and then it will be restored.
I'm gonna just kind of change that language. We have requested that leaking fluids do not go to the ground surface. There continues and has continued to be leaking fluids in areas that do not have competent hardscape. This is a big moving piece. We need to get these cars off of there. Prologis has said that they are working to move these things. We'll be looking at that tomorrow. But ultimately, the cars need to come off. The hardscape needs to be restored so that there is no direct contact with contamination. And once the cars are off, there is going to be additional subsurface investigation to evaluate what the impacts are from using the site as this auto tow yard. So that's going to occur. There's going to be some interim, and I think, do we have another slide? Maybe do I have another slide? Yeah. Again, this is, I talked about this earlier because I was tying it into something, the submittal of the technical memorandums. What's in the groundwater in that industrial supply well pit that was left open, an open hole for a long time? What's in those pits? That's to be determined. We will find out very shortly what's in there. That's going to guide both our subsurface investigations and our stormwater investigations. Next slide. Yeah. And this is where I was kind of going. In the meantime, we have requested a work plan for quarterly monitoring of all of the existing monitoring wells and soil vapor probes. That's going to be, supposedly that was submitted 2 days ago. I don't know that it was. I don't think I've seen that. I will wrap around with them on that. And so that we can collect data from existing monitoring points while the tow yard is there. And then once the tow yard is off, they will submit a work plan for additional soil vapor, soil and groundwater and stormwater investigation.
Dylan, I'm going to ask you just to go back to hardscape for a minute. So John, if you would just go back. I have two questions. So one is very simple. Can someone define hardscape in layperson's terms?
Oh, sure.
Right.
So hardscape is anything that is, so when AB&I was demolished, they were only allowed to demolish the structure, the vertical structure. So no foundations were allowed to be demolished, no asphalt or pavement, right? Because we've got contamination in the soil we need to have a corrective action plan before they start pulling all that stuff up. So that's what hardscape is. It's like there's landscape, right, which is softscape stuff. Hardscape is any kind of, permanent kind of concrete asphalt in either foundations or the parking lot, which covers
So
the site.
great. Okay. And then there's just one more clarifying question. I believe there was a prior slide talking about moving cars to less degraded areas after the hardscape assessment. Perhaps I misunderstood. So the timing of moving cars and the hardscape assessment.
I have been told by Prologis that they are in the process of doing that in the last meeting I was on. I don't know. I will see when I get there. It should be happening now. We have requested in a meeting probably before probably a month ago or several weeks ago that Auto Plus Towing that the lease area, as the number of cars reduced, that the area where cars are stored on competent concrete and not in degraded areas. So I'm hoping that is happening. That is, and we'll see when we go to the site inspection tomorrow.
Okay. All right, John.
And this is this is a next step schedule. There are a lot of pieces. There are probably pieces in here that aren't. There are many documents and many agencies working on this, but this gives a kind of the outline that we've been talking about and the timeline. There's a lot of information that we're gonna get in the next several weeks regarding what is in the groundwater and what's in the stormwater, and that's going to inform a lot of our next steps. So this is kind of there for you to look at. Again, some dates may change, although I have granted a request. I have granted some extensions for like submittal of work plans or submittal of documents due to contractor availability. But I have made it very clear that I will grant one extension. I will not grant multiple extensions on the submittal of documents. So most of these documents I expect will be coming in on time. And if they aren't, we're gonna go down enforcement because this has been going on for a long time.
Okay. So I'm going to give people just a moment to read through the schedule and pick out any dates that you're interested in. Right, and then I wanted to just quickly focus on community communications. We'll continue to have our interagency meetings. We're thinking that the timing, and I'd love to get everybody's opinion on this, for the next community meeting will be sometime in September for two reasons. One, the cars should be moved off there and we should have more information to answer some of the questions we're getting. Two, everybody will be back from summer schedules if anybody's going anywhere, and it will be an easier time for community and city county staff to participate. So if you have any ideas about the timing of the next meeting, and that would just be a community meeting, please put it in the Q&A box. You can text me as well or call me. Also, I would say we are always available to meet with people individually. So if there's something you didn't understand or you have a group that you want us to address, Alameda County Environmental Health is available to have a one-off and talk about what's going on out here. Okay, next slide, John. Okay, so that brings us to that concludes our presentation. Again, Tracy Craig, there's my phone number. You can call me, you can text me. You can call me in the middle of the night if something's going on at the site that you're concerned about. I have a direct line to Dylan, can get anybody on this call to respond. So please feel free to use my number if you have questions and contact me. Alameda County Environmental Health's documents related to this site are on GeoTracker, and that includes all correspondence. So you can always go to GeoTracker and access that. For the city's documents, you do have to do a Public Records Act request. There is a comment here, and I just want to note that since we're talking about that, that the city makes it difficult to get documents, and maybe they should make it easier. So just something to note for the city. Okay, and that concludes our presentation. So we're going to go ahead and open this up for questions and answers. I do have some open questions in the Q&A box that I'm going to take. And then if you're interested in speaking, you do have audio privileges. We can see you. We'd love to see your faces. We'll unmute you and you can go ahead and ask your questions directly. So I would ask, if you do want to speak, to please raise your virtual hand. I'll just call on people in the order that I see them in the listing of participants and attendees. And while you're raising your hand, I'm going to go ahead and ask a few questions. So first question is actually for Joe DeVry, and I would ask you to introduce yourself because not everybody knows who you are. And here's the question. Given that APT was working as a city contractor, and given that the city was aware they were operating without a permit and appeared to have come into the last meeting intending to defend APT's use of the site, I'm wondering if there has been any sort of debrief within the city to figure out how this happened and how to stop it from happening again, and lessons learned.
Thanks, Tracy.
You're welcome.
That is a really good question. I hope you can hear me all right.
Again, introduce yourself, please.
Yes, I am Joe DeVries. I'm a deputy city administrator. So I work in the city administrator's office. And for those who aren't familiar, pretty much all departments in the city report to the city administrator. And so we are involved, with any project that touches multiple departments in particular. My role with this, for about a year and a half, I oversaw the Abandoned Auto Task Force, which was designed to transfer the responsibility of towing abandoned vehicles from city streets out of OPD's jurisdiction and into the Department of Transportation. And that was a project that was part of the whole reimagining public safety to try to shrink the police department footprint and see if civilian staff could handle some of these tasks, and abandoned cars was one of them. And so because I was involved with some of the parties in that, I was pulled into this conversation when it was discovered that our contractor was operating without the proper zoning. I take a little exception to the statement within the question that the city was seemingly, okay with this. We were really doing fact finding and trying to figure out what the best path forward was. I think what I articulated at the last meeting was that these vehicles are typically towed from environmental justice neighborhoods. I've seen the tow data, the abandoned car call requests, and in East Oakland, we have an overwhelming number of abandoned vehicles on the streets in residential neighborhoods, often causing blight, discharge that goes into the stormwater system, traffic safety issues in neighborhoods. And so the city really is committed to getting these vehicles off the street. And so when we learned about these violations, we were really looking to see what made the most sense. I have to say the last community meeting was very helpful in hearing the community's feelings and response and more depth about this particular site and the longstanding environmental injustice that it posed for the East Oakland community, which is why we immediately took steps to issue notices of violation after that meeting. As far as lessons learned, interdepartmental communication is certainly the lesson learned here. Our police department handled a contract with APT, and that was a number of years ago. The communication about that with the planning and building department, is something that needs to happen, and it needs to happen more efficiently for a site and a project this big. I do think that once we learned the extent of it, we did get all the right parties to the table. And moving forward, I think the silver lining is that the city staff and the county staff are partnering very closely, not just with the Prologis site, but also with the next steps for APT. So we're all going to be checking very carefully to make sure that whatever site they select or expand are permitted, do meet all of the environmental regulations, both at the city side and at the county side. And I would say that's the silver lining that this project has kind of given us.
Okay, thanks. Dylan, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
I appreciate that, Joe, what you said, and this has not been easy, right? This is a lot of agencies coming together, a lot of departments within agencies, and a lot of effort, a lot of energy has been put into trying to understand how everybody intersects, where they intersect. And I appreciate all of the interagency cooperation. It has not been easy, but we have kept at it, and we will keep at it, because if we don't keep at it, then this is a waste. I mean, it's a one-off, and I think everybody here understands, and it is from community input where we do understand this stuff. And I know I am a government employee and I am frustrated with government, right? And so I appreciate everybody that continues to work on this. Partnerships are how you make things happen, and relationships are how you make things happen. So we appreciate the community and having relationships with you, because you are the guys that are going to tell us how we need to do things better.
Okay, we have a couple more questions in the chat box, and then Adele, Gabrielle, and Sharifa. And those are the three people that have their hands raised right now. I just have a couple more questions here. Why are you waiting 2 months until July 31st to stop bringing in new vehicles? Joe, is that you, Ceci? Again, why are you waiting 2 months until July 31st to stop bringing in new vehicles?
I think that July 31st, and Terry, you can help me with clarifying this date, was more or less the time frame for getting the compliance plan signed, starting to do some of the work now. And then there was our inspections that need to happen tomorrow. So I think that's just a tentative date as far as I'm aware right now. But Terry, I don't know if you have any more to offer regarding that question.
I'm actually gonna defer to Joe on this one because Auto Plus moving off the site is a little bit more complicated. And Joe, would you mind addressing that?
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is that the type of vehicles that were causing the most problems are no longer coming to the site, and that only intact vehicles are. And I know Maria can speak to this as well, but I believe I believe that is the case, that the problem vehicles are mostly been removed, or and that any new vehicles will only be intact that don't pose the same environmental concerns until Auto Plus Towing can get in their new facility. And Maria, you can confirm that if you don't mind.
Yes, that is correct. So it's just a matter of us relocating the vehicles, and the only vehicles that are being brought in there at this time are not leaking vehicles. They're not burned vehicles.
Okay. And I think the question behind the subtext behind that is maybe let's try to stop bringing vehicles in to the extent that you can sooner rather than later. Okay.
For sure. For
All
sure.
right. Okay. I just want to note there's a comment here that just says, please translate the slides in Spanish next time and show them simultaneously. So I want to say, yes, we can do that, and we will do that. Thank you for that direction. And then I'm going to go ahead and ask Adele to unmute herself, and then it's Adele, Adele, Gabrielle, Sharifa, and then Marina. So Adele, hi.
Hi, Tracy. Hey, everyone. Yeah, Adele Watts, I use she, her pronouns, interim program co-director at Communities for a Better Environment, or CBE. Yeah, appreciating what was shared during the presentation, and even just hearing, from Joe right now around, I just want to uplift the fact that like this is not just like, hopefully this is not just an isolated case where there is interagency collaboration, because it's much needed in environmental justice communities. I guess I have a few questions, but I think one of them was just answered, which was around like, why are we still bringing vehicles to a site that like is, not properly permitted, and then also like, highly contaminated? Like, why are we still even allowing, any kind of vehicles to be stored there? I think at this point it's like, yeah, it's been in this way for far too long, and so just naming that. And then one question that I had was around the actual like during the process of moving the vehicles, are there preventative measures that are being taken to keep toxic pollutants contained during like the vehicle transfers that are happening? So that's one question. And then if I recall correctly from the previous meeting, there were some structures that were built for Auto Plus towing that were not permitted. And so I'm curious about if those will be demolished, or like what will happen with those structures that were built on the site for the Auto Plus use. So those are the couple of questions that I have. And then the last question I'll ask is about if there will be a traffic analysis done before, well, I guess we already know there are vehicles that are being moved, but is there any kind of traffic analysis that would be done, like as the bulk of the vehicles are moved?
Okay.
I can answer one of those.
All right.
Which is, in Adele, I think what you're bringing up about the vehicle transfers and contamination and stabilizing vehicles. I think that's something that we need to figure out because that doesn't happen as far as I can tell. And so I'm just noting your point. I have brought it up before. It's tough figuring that out, but burned out vehicles are spewing PFAS all over the place as they drive down, as they're being driven down. It's just like tarping a truck before it leaves a contaminated site. So I do think that's something we need to address, and certainly I will be talking with all of the agencies as we go forward on that. Is what are the protocols for that?
Mhm.
And
Dylan, what?
sorry, I can answer your question regarding buildings on site. So we did issue through the Building Bureau some demolition permits, and some of those structures were demolished and finalized as of late last year in December. If there are any concerns of structures that are unlawful on site, or if that is a result of our inspection that we are conducting tomorrow, then we would address those as well. Either by having some sort of permit to demolish and or permit, if you will.
Okay. All right. What about traffic analysis? There's a question in the chat box too. What if any kind of traffic analysis has been done for trucks coming and going from the site to new locations? Have you done any analysis of potential for track out and air pollution for trucking? I think the latter part of that question, Dylan answered, but will there be any traffic analysis associated with trucks coming and going as they take cars off site? Okay, I am going to assume that there hasn't been, but I will follow up on that question and I will send an answer out. Typically, we send those answers to Adele, at CBE, and she shares that information. So I'll take that as a follow-up action for me to get to find if there's an answer to that. Okay. All right. And then I think next up we have Gabrielle.
Sorry, thank you. I was having some technical issues. I
Okay.
guess, so, okay. I wanna just get some clarity on, I understand, for, Joe DeVries, the thing about I just wanna clarify, like, my perception of the last meeting, because I think that's kind of important, that we had multiple city employees in that meeting saying, "This is an essential service," um, referring to a hypothetical situation where the city could potentially, like, use kind of a loophole to issue them a permit. So I just want to kind of point that out, because that, whether or not that was the intent of the city, that was how that was perceived by members of the public attending that meeting. So when I ask about like a postmortem or a debrief or whatever, I'm really saying that the city left us at that meeting feeling like the city either did not care or was actively um, instrumental in the selection of that site. And so I just want to make it clear that like that was how that was received by at least some of us in attendance at that meeting. And if that was not the case, then I would like to see some real like transparency and clarity to make sure that that does not happen again. So yeah, that's really it. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Gabrielle. And then
Tracy, could I
next,
respond to that?
yes, you may, of
Yeah.
course.
I think I really appreciate that input, and it was certainly not our goal to create that impression, but obviously our impact is more important than our intent. What I will say is that actually it was an abundance of transparency that I shared that possibility with you, not a lack of transparency. When I asked staff and multiple departments were involved, as to what the different various scenarios were in this situation. One scenario that was presented would be this, that the city could lease the site. Based on all the data and the information, we decided that that was not a viable option, and we moved forward with the notice of violation. But I wanted to be fully transparent with you about all the options that were presented to us, and will continue to be that way.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up, Sharifa.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you. And if you want to undo your camera, we could see you too.
I'm okay for now, thank you.
All righty, no problem.
I actually really appreciate what Gabrielle just said. That wasn't actually why I came on here, because I wasn't in attendance of the last meeting, but it kind of ties in with what I wanted to say. Um, so Mine was a combination of kind of a question and a comment. So, with the idea of, I mean, I don't agree with the tow yard being an essential service, but I hear you that that's what you all think. Um, uh, are or can there be a city operated tow yard or wrecking yard where they're dispersed across the city? Because if you all were to go back to that map that you had up briefly for a couple of seconds, at least the one where it was the Auto Plus towing map, they weren't that far apart on San Leandro Street. And so my point here is that uh yeah, it's are or can they be dispersed so that they're not concentrated in East and West Oakland, particularly the flats, where there's already a disproportionate pollution burden. And so it was brought up during a meeting the other day that there are empty parking lots, whether they're owned, operated, or could be rented by the city, that could be used for this purpose instead. And so I think that's a good solution that could be considered instead of just, putting them all, like I said, in East Oakland, West Oakland, which has the Port of Oakland, who self-regulates, but not really. And so, yeah, keeping that in mind of they don't need to be where we're at, and we're having, trouble breathing, health problems, and other issues. So something to keep in mind, considering that the city considers them to be an essential service. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, I
Tracy,
am,
I'm
would
sorry,
you like,
I would
yes,
love to respond to
yes, you may, Joe.
that.
Please do.
I was
That's why you're
literally,
here.
I was literally in a meeting yesterday with our parking manager in OCDOT and some representatives from Caltrans, and we were talking about this very problem. Removing abandoned vehicles from the street is an essential service. It is the #2 complaint on Oak 311 after illegal dumping. And actually some months in the last year and a half, it was the #1 complaint in our Oak 311 system. And I know as an Oaklander, what it's like to have an abandoned car across the street from your house that's deteriorating, becoming a magnet for illegal dumping and other activity. So yes, it's an essential service, and we would love to spread out the tow yards in a manner that actually makes it better for the community to reclaim their cars when they're actually getting their car back, because we also have the stolen vehicle problem in Oakland, 1 in 6 cars being stolen. And when your car is stolen and the police recover it, it is APT that tows it. We try to give you about 30 or 40 minutes to come get it yourself, and we waive the impound fees for Oakland residents. But we would like to make it more convenient for people to get their cars back. And so if we could find appropriate land to have multiple tow sites, that's an aspirational goal. And we're not there yet. We were talking to Caltrans about possibly using under freeway areas, but because of the fires in LA that collapsed the 10 freeway, Caltrans is putting very strict restrictions on how under freeway areas can be used. And storage of vehicles is not one of them. So we're in a bit of a quagmire trying to determine the best places to put these, because the cars will continue to be abandoned on our streets, and we'll continue to need to pick them up.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Joe. I'm just going to also ask you, can you just talk briefly about zoning as well? Because I think it's a zoning issue, if I'm not mistaken, too.
Well, yes, that is true. The general plan of the city and our zoning elements determine where different uses can be placed. You have industrial uses, you have commercial uses, and a variety of different types of commercial uses, and you have residential. And frankly, the institutional racism that persisted decades ago allowed neighborhoods where people live to be impacted by industrial uses. And the city's current general plan updates are making huge efforts to undo that historic impact. And it's true. The same neighborhoods where we have high levels of illegal dumping and abandoned cars are the same neighborhoods where we have the highest hospitalization rates for asthma attacks, and all sorts of other health disparities. And so the zoning dictates that, and that's why so many people have engaged in our general plan zoning update, and need to continue to do so. And I think that this current council and the political direction for the city is to continue to work in an equitable way to undo a lot of these harms from the past. And these are harms that were developed over many decades before a lot of us were born, and it's going to take some time to undo them. But yeah, it is definitely a zoning challenge.
Thanks, Joe.
And I don't know if we want more talk on that from our building official, who probably knows the zoning
No, I
rules
think
better
I
than
think
I
that's
do.
sufficient. I just wanted to make sure that that was out there. And then just a quick comment from somebody on the subject. Unhoused individuals live under freeways, whether it's sanctioned, tiny home rapid rehousing, or not, encampments. So that's something also to consider when considering areas to place abandoned cars. So just wanted to say that. And I think we're going to move on because Marina has had her hand up for quite some time. So Marina?
Sí, hola, buenas noches. Mi nombre es Marina Muñoz. ¿Sí me va a interpretar? Sí, yo lo que quiero, como dice Adel, queremos, ¿verdad? Queremos transparencia, ¿verdad? Sobre todo lo que hace la ciudad, porque me he dado cuenta, ¿verdad? Con estas reuniones que hemos tenido, que no nos toman en cuenta la comunidad, sino que ellos trabajan sin avisarle. La comunidad ni idea tiene que teníamos esos carros ahí. Si es que no nos damos cuenta, ¿verdad? Porque pasamos ahí, vemos estos autos, no supiéramos nada, ¿sí? La ciudad no se hizo cargo de decirle a la comunidad, voy a poner esto, y sin permiso. ¿Qué es lo que quiere la ciudad? ¿Nomás el dinero? ¿No se preocupa por las necesidades de nuestra comunidad? Ese espacio ya estaba contaminado anteriormente, sabemos que hay mucha contaminación en ese lugar. ¿Y ellos cómo se aseguraron de meter esos carros viejos destruidos cuando ya esa contaminación existía? Tenemos que limpiar el lugar primero, averiguar, ¿verdad? Decirle a la comunidad si está de acuerdo que se ponga esa contaminación de carros. Nosotros necesitamos algo para los jóvenes, para nosotros mismos, ¿verdad? Que vendan comidas orgánicas que no nos enfermen, ¿verdad? A bajo precio. Queremos esos mercados. No queremos carros, no vamos a comer carros para nuestra salud. Al contrario, nos estamos contaminando con todo eso. Se los digo porque sufro de alergias y mis hijas de asma. Queremos algo saludable, algo verde, trabajos para los jóvenes. ¿Sí? No queremos que la ciudad nomás quiera el
Okay.
dinero para ellos. También nosotros queremos aquí. La comunidad necesita. Y yo quiero que haya transparencia de todo lo que se va a hacer, lo que se ha hablado en estas juntas, ¿verdad? De todos los permisos, cómo va a trabajar cada compañía, organización, ¿sí? Y queremos que esos sueldos que
Okay.
están ahí, que en verdad se estudien.
I have a couple more
Gracias.
questions I need to get to, and we're going to end at 7:30 as promised. So can you please tell Marina thank you for her comments? Noted, and we appreciate her time. Muchas gracias.
Tracy, can I just address that really briefly? I know we're almost up on time, but can I just add a comment?
Yes.
Thank you. And I'm going to do this in Spanish, so if our translator, and I can retranslate that in English as well. Primeramente, Marina, demasiadas gracias por atender esta junta esta noche. Para mí me da mucho gusto cuando la comunidad latina está presente en juntas en las cuales les afectan directamente. Obviamente entendemos básicamente todo lo que nos está diciendo en cuanto a lo que usted gustaría ver en la comunidad. Y nuestra meta siempre es poder conectar con la comunidad, poder ofrecer ciertas cosas, actividades, tiendas para nuestra comunidad y para mantenerla saludable. Entonces, le quiero primeramente aplaudir por estar aquí esta noche y a la misma vez por pedirle, bueno, más que nada, decirle las gracias por sus comentarios, porque nos da mucho que pensar y a la misma vez invitarla si hay una oportunidad en el futuro donde usted pueda participar en el proceso de zonificación para entender exactamente qué se necesitan las comunidades. Esa es la voz que necesitamos en la comunidad. Nosotros, por medio de nuestro departamento, vamos a hacer todo lo posible para poder evitar ciertas cosas que suceden como en este caso, ¿no? Entonces, estamos trabajando ahorita todos colectivamente para poder ver que este asunto no siga pasando. Entonces, muchísimas gracias por su comentario. Basically, let Marina know that, these are the kind of comments that
Okay.
really help us understand what the community needs, and we're trying to do everything in our power to move forward, understanding the needs of the community as well as addressing the concerns that come up and addressing situations such as these in the future collectively as interagency departments. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to say offline, Gabrielle, yes, we can do that. Okay, 2 more questions and I think we'll be done. And I think this is actually for Dylan first. Is Prologis committed to completing a full remediation process before starting any further development at the site? I think it's a 2-pronged answer. Dylan, I'd like you to start and then we'll kick it over to Blair on behalf of Prologis.
I would hope so. But in order to redevelop the site, there will be full remediation. So there are agency requirements. Prologis accepted the environmental liability when they took over the site. So they have both responsibility to do the final facility closure under CUPA and to remediate to address any impacts from historical land use, including the current tow yard, to address any kind of offsite impacts and to remove contaminant mass before it gets redeveloped with a new facility.
Okay. And Blair, anything you'd like to add? Blair? Okay, I'm going to move us along. Blair, if you get your audio back, please let me know. Another question, and this is probably for Joe and Dylan. What, if anything, has the city of Oakland and Alameda County learned from the situation at Pick and Pull right next to the site, where significant water pollution has determined to be the cause of the haphazardous operation of their vehicle dismantling site? At what point does the city, county, state, federal government say enough is enough when it comes to blatant pollution in communities like East Oakland? So first time hearing of the Pick and Pull site. Dylan, thoughts, or Joe?
First time hearing of it too, so I want to know more about it. And I'll do what I can to bring it to people's attention. I believe that environmental health demonstrates their commitment to trying to change things and trying to listen and trying to move things. I think this is an example of it, and we'll continue to do it. So you have sites that you are concerned about. I only know about them if there is some kind of case that has been opened or if I hear something from you. And so we will certainly, if you let me know more about it, I'll certainly find out and work with CUPA and work with the city of Oakland. And I think what Joe said earlier and what I repeated is we are committed to having coordination and understanding how to address sites that are out of compliance and not working. I don't know if the regional water board or DTSC is involved in those, but certainly if you tell me about it and they are, I will have meetings with the regional board and DTSC, and we can have community meetings about those. And I hope going forward that we have quarterly meetings with CBE and other community groups to talk about your concerns so that we can actually keep addressing the big issues in East Oakland.
Okay, and I have noted that we will look into the Pick and Pull site, and in the meeting in September, we will tell you what we found out.
Right, and I just want to say that we will also look into this. This should be on our list of businesses that are inspected through our business stormwater inspection program. And so I will have my staff person, Mike Perlmutter, verify that this is on our list and that we've been inspecting it.
Okay, thank you, Terry. Okay, and then the last question I have here is, can you show us the tow data? Where can we access this? Is that you, Joe?
Yeah, Tracy, hi. Thank you. I was actually trying to answer them in the chat, but it wouldn't let me paste a link in there. There was a report on the first 9 months of operation of the Vehicle Enforcement Unit that came to council in 2024. There was a follow-up report that I'm trying to find. I was trying to find it while you were talking. I will send it to John so he can send the links to those reports out to the group, because for some reason I can't paste it into the Zoom chat. So I'll send them to you guys. But there's been a couple of reports just in the past couple of years, or in the past year, that talk about the number of cars towed, where they're from, and whatnot. And yeah.
Okay.
I'll get all that to you.
Great. So Joe will get us that link and we'll send it to CBE with a request that they share it with the community. If you'd like us to send it to you directly, please put your email in the Q&A. If you're uncomfortable putting your email in the Q&A and sending it to me privately, you can text it to me or email it to me, and we'll throw those numbers up in just a minute. We have one more person that wants to comment. Shamar Diaz, I believe. If you would unmute yourself and provide comments or questions. There's a blue button that you need to push to unmute. There you go.
I appreciate it. And yeah, no, I mean, just following up from what the previous person was saying, that somehow they're unaware. I thought it was common knowledge. It was in the news, in the press in 22. Pick and Pull was fined for their hazardous waste disposal into receiving waters, and a subsequent lawsuit alleged that they're continuing to violate the Clean Water Act. Of course, there's some, just missing dots there where you have nonprofits suing folks for legal violations, those entities settling out of court, and somehow the regulators being none the wiser. So definitely seems to be some missing dots here. Definitely invite you all to kind of understand the sensitive watershed that is the San Leandro Creek area, and yeah, do your due diligence to ensure it's protected, because obviously community members can only do so much that our professional regulatory staff are supposed to be doing. So hopefully y'all do better.
Thank you. Thank you, Shamar. Okay, I think that concludes all of the questions that we had. I just want to say that we need to look into the Pick and Pull site, traffic analysis question, and the tow data. So we'll be sending information out about that. I think we'll be scheduling our next meeting in September. But if we have any big updates to send out or information, I will send an email to CBE with the request that they share it with their constituents. Again, if you want to get on a mailing list about the site, feel free to send me your thank you, John. You're reading my mind. Send me a text, call me, or email me, and I will make sure that you receive information directly. I know emails, people sometimes don't like to share those. And I think that I would like to hand this over to Joe to say something just to close us out, and then to Dylan.
I really, really appreciate the attention to this site and recognize the importance of interdepartmental cooperation, not just interdepartmental, but interagency. I really think that when the city and the county work together, we serve in partnership with the community. We can do great things, and when we don't, we don't.
Okay, and then Dylan, anything?
Yeah, I want to just acknowledge that, and you may not like this, but it's true. we're all individual people. We're human beings that have a job, and I think that there's a lot of expectation of what government means, and government is difficult. The way government is segmented is difficult. There's just in the environmental world, there are so many players of how this all works together. And this is not an excuse. This is a reality. It is very difficult. And who has jurisdiction over what is in my mind is kind of mind-boggling. And none of us have any control over that. And so coming together and trying to understand what we do, how we do it, how we intersect, is challenging. And I want to say that everybody on this call has really been trying to figure this out. And so when there is a site that we don't know about, I mean, I personally have over 1,000 environmental cases that my agency oversees, and I have very limited ways that I get to know about them or that I get to regulate them, right? But I am an advocate of being loud and vocal if I find out something is wrong, And people don't like me all the time, but I'm loud and vocal. And I want you guys to be loud and vocal, and we'll continue to work on this together. And I believe that we'll make progress on this. And I think East Oakland is it is a place that we need to make sure this is not a one-off. All your comments that you have given from day one on this site have been valid, and sometimes they're hard to hear. Because we all have some piece that we've got to deal with, and it's hard. It is a hard thing to do, but I appreciate all of you. I appreciate everybody that's been on this call, and I am committed to continuing to work with City of Oakland and the county to continue to improve things.
Great, great. I think actually the pick and pull site is owned by Schnitzer Steel, and I think that if I'm not mistaken, right?
So that's, yeah, so that's a regional water board and
Right.
DPSC site. It's got a lot of stuff, a lot of lawsuits. I hear you on that. So you've
Adele.
got, yep.
Oh, Adele has her hand up, and then I'm going to end us, Adele, after that, if you would be, please.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah, really quickly, I just wanted to note like what other community outreach is happening. CBE obviously will continue to connect with our, members and community that we're connected with. And I think it's great to collect, emails from folks who are in this space, but just also curious to hear what other kinds of community outreach is happening. In particular, there are two temporary housing shelters on Hagenberger that are very, very close to this site that, come up for me of like concern. So Youth Spirit Artworks, which is temporary housing for transitional age youth who are, like aging out of foster care system, right? They're especially vulnerable. And then also, I think it's called BOSS or like Operation Home Base, which is right next to them. And I believe the address is like 633 Hagenberger. So it's very, very close to this site and other contaminating sites like Argent Materials and, and Pick and Pull, right? So all of these sites are extremely close to those folks who are especially vulnerable. So just wanting to hear what other community outreach is happening, and also maybe pushing for some like targeted outreach to those groups, and also our unhoused neighbors who are especially vulnerable because they have no shelter from, environmental hazards and harms. So just wanted to uplift that.
Okay. All right. I will say that we do provide door-to-door or hand-to-hand information to unhoused individuals prior to these meetings, but I don't think we really get that much representation because there's an assumption there that you have a computer. With regard to the others, we'll absolutely call you to discuss how best to engage those groups. And I always appreciate recommendations and thoughts on how we can get more information out to the community and more involvement. So I want to thank you for that, and also thank everybody for joining. We'll have a meeting in September, and if you have any other questions or concerns in the meantime, there's my information. You can call me at any time, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks.